I'm Stephen Guise, and I am the one.
Welcome to I Am the One, Entrepreneur Edition, a show that explores the journey of business owners who decided to be the one to make life better for the people that they serve. I'm your host, Sonia Thompson, and I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Stephen Guise. Stephen is the author of the book Many Habits, a best-selling book he's self-published that's been translated into more than 12 languages. He's also turned his book into a course to further help readers make many habits a part of their everyday life. His second book, How to Be an Imperfectionist, launched earlier this year. Now, if all that hasn't made you tired yet, Stephen is also the founder of Deep Existence, a no-fluff personal development blog. Stephen's got great strategies that can totally transform your life and the way you work. So you're going to want to listen to everything he's got to say. But before we get into the interview, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Try Business School. Get the information you need to build the business of your dreams, step by step. Visit trybizschool.com, that's trybizschool.com, and get started with your free e-course, the 4 people you need to build a successful business. Now, on to the good stuff. Here's Stephen. Well, hey, Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today on this show. It's so wonderful to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed your book, Many Habits, and I wanted to make sure other people knew all about it. So can you just tell everybody a little bit about Many Habits, what they are, how you discovered them, and then just sort of the evolution that came as a result?
Absolutely. So, I accidentally discovered many habits one day when I was feeling lazy, unmotivated, tired, and I wanted to work out, but I couldn't for those reasons. So what I wanted to do was a 30-minute workout, and in my mind that was like climbing Mount Everest. So I I felt stuck, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, just not feeling motivated to reach a goal. So I had read in a book called Thinker Toys about a creative problem-solving concept called false faces, where you consider the opposite of what you're currently thinking. So the opposite of my Mount Everest was I decided to do one push-up. So I got down, I did one push-up, then I was already there, so I did a few more. And long story short, it turned into a full workout, and that was kind of the birth of many habits, because I started doing at least one push-up a day, and then that turned into a full-size gym habit, which I still have 2 years later.
That's wonderful.
So it's resulted in a permanent, awesome change in my life. And I've also applied it to reading and writing, and that's where the mini habits term came about, because it was more than just exercise. You could realize you could form these mini habits in any part of your life and have amazing results. And the basis of a mini habit, you can probably gather, is to do something really small, but do it every single day so it forms into a small habit, which you can build off of.
Right. I think the way you described it in the book was something that's just, it's so small, it's impossible to not do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's been really helpful. So you found all these habits that really started to make a difference in your life. What happened that made you decide, hey, I want to share this with other people and help them at the same time?
Well, I had been writing about personal growth for 2 or 3 years at this point on my blog. And even before that, I would say 7 years before that is when I started writing about personal growth just as a personal interest. So I already had this platform that I was building, and I did want to monetize it at some point, though that wasn't why I started it. So and I was looking for a book to write, but nothing none of the topics I had thought of were like, oh yeah, that's it. So then this mini habits idea came along, and it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Share it. So
Yeah. So what made you decide that you were going to be the one, I mean, with your personal development website, with the mini habits and writing this book, what made you decide that to say, I am the one, I've got a voice, I've got these things to share with the world, so I'm going to share them?
that's a great question, and I would say it's two different answers: one for the site, and then one for the book. For the site, I tried to get a job out of college for a year, and I couldn't get one, and I didn't like that.
Right.
Surprising, isn't it? Uh, so that kind of made me a little bit upset that nobody else could see my value, and
Absolutely.
I decided to start a blog and see if I could do something myself to provide value to the world directly.
Right.
So that was for the site, and then for the book, I was just in a really, I think, unique position to have experience, the writing ability, and just doing the research on the concept. I was in the perfect position to present the idea to the world.
Got it. So did your writing, before you actually wrote the Mini Habits book, did your writing turn into a job or turn into a career for you, or was the book what really sort of launched you out there?
The book was definitely the financial launch.
Okay.
That's in I didn't make money before the book.
Right.
But when I released the book, I did have a little bit over 4,000 subscribers. So
very good.
I'd at least built a platform to where something like that was possible.
Okay. Very good. That's always helpful for people to know as they want to write a book. They might not have that audience, that platform yet. So it's helpful for your launch and your sales afterwards to be starting from having people who are already interested in hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, that actually plays a big role in a book's success, because the launch can get it visible to where people who don't know your work can see it. And of course, I'm on Amazon, so if you can get into up in their rankings, then they're a really powerful marketing machine. So.
They certainly are. You can't ignore them.
No.
All right, so here's one quote from the book that stuck out to me. I wrote many, many, many pages and pages of notes as I've been working to implement many habits in my own life. But here is, I think, one of my favorites. It says, "We're quick to blame ourselves for a lack of progress, but slow to blame our strategies. Then we repeat them over and over again, trying to make them work." I've been there. But here's the thing. If you fail using a particular strategy more than a few times, you need to try another one. It doesn't matter if it works for everyone else if it doesn't work for you. So the question I have here, because that's really a great way to get people to think about why they're not seeing success. But I guess there comes a point where you have to ask yourself, if something isn't working, is it working because I haven't given it enough time? Or is it that my strategy is totally off? Because sometimes I think people will try something for maybe a month or 2 months and it doesn't work well, or they try it and they don't actually execute it the right way, so they don't get the results they want. So they throw their hands up and say, no more. So when do you decide if it's your strategy or your approach to the strategy versus needing to total scrap it and try something else?
That's a really good and difficult question to answer, but I'll try. So I think for the majority of people, they've tried the same general strategy for many years or even decades of their lives. And generally that strategy is to get motivated to reach their goals, and even to set bigger goals to try to amp themselves up to reach that point. Essentially, they believe they need to try harder.
Okay.
But what I'm saying in that quote is that trying harder isn't usually the problem, because you are going to be you. I mean, when you see yourself as the constant, that changes your whole perspective, because you're you'll stop saying, "Oh, what's wrong with me?" You'll start saying, "What's wrong with the way that I'm approaching this problem?"
Right.
It's the strategy. So, as for when to know it's you or the strategy, uh, it's tricky, but I think if you try it more than a few times and you don't get anywhere with it, and you are following certain principles and they're not working, then you change.
Explore something. No, that's a good way of thinking through it. If you know that you've done the things that people have told you need to do to get the results, and you're still not seeing those results, then yeah, it might be worth it to try something that fits who you are a little bit better.
Yeah, and you can't just say, "Oh, well, I didn't follow this step, so it's my fault," either, because that can be a flaw in the strategy, that the step is too large for you to take at this point, which I think is a really common flaw that many habits addresses.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And I guess if you're trying to do something or change a behavior, if you're already beating yourself up about trouble that you're having with it, you're fighting another uphill battle. You're giving yourself one other barrier that'll make it even more difficult for you to get there.
Very true.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was another favorite quote that I had of the many, and it says, "Anything dependent upon human emotion is completely unreliable." And I had to sit and think about that one, because I think so often emotions can run our lives, but as you say, it's unreliable. So why do you think we as people, as humans, rely so much on our emotions whenever it can get us into so much trouble?
Yeah, it's really tricky because the emotions and actions both affect each other. So I think that most people tend to be somewhat passive in how they approach life. So if you are passive, then you'll have emotions, as we all do in life, and those emotions will fuel actions. So you'll see this connection: emotion, action, emotion, action.
Right.
And so, being the problem solvers that we are, then we think we need to change our emotions in order to take different actions.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't realize you can also take action to change your emotion,
Okay.
which results in different actions. So essentially, the action to emotion perspective is actually a lot more effective than trying to change your emotions to take action.
No, that makes perfect sense. And have you seen people really start to make this change? They've switched in the way they're thinking and changing the action and emotion, and see just drastic differences?
Yeah, I mean, that's what mini habits is. You're taking, like, you feel depressed or lazy or unmotivated, but you take this small action, and that begins to change how you feel, because how are you going to feel lazy when you're currently jogging?
Right.
Like, it doesn't work.
You're winning at that point.
Yeah, mind and the body want to be in congruency, so when you start taking action, that can change how you feel, and that helps you to take more action. That's why it's so powerful.
Very cool. So when you talked a little bit about, like, you had trouble finding a job, so you started this blog, and then you discovered many habits, so then you started writing, and you were looking for a book to write. All these are very big things. Like, there are millions of blogs all over the world, started all the time, and there are lots of people who have written books or want to write a book. What was your biggest fear that you had when thinking about or getting ready to put your work out into the world, whether it was your blog, your book, and turning this into a business?
Yeah, I think my fear is the same as almost anyone's fear when they are creatives. We want our work to be seen.
Right.
So that was my fear, that I'd put all this work into the book or into the blog, and that nobody would read it. And that fear came true for a great majority of the blog's lifetime. In the first 2 years, I had 440 subscribers, which was a lot lower than a lot of my peers. And I almost quit 5 or 6 times. So that fear really did come true, but I pushed through it.
Right. So what was it that caused you to push through it? Because you made it through the other side. What was it that caused you to push through it? Did you have to change some of your habits in the way you approached blogging, or?
The main thing that helped me push through it is that I had a personal interest and I cared about it aside from the money and the popularity, because I used to do it on my own just for myself.
Right.
So in the hard times I had to fall back to that, like, oh right, I'm not doing this to make money or to be famous. So that's really what helped me to stick with it. Now I know some people can make money by trying to make money, but in this type of business where you're trying to help people, it's really important that you really care about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're just going to be giving vapid advice and hoping that someone will see something in it when
Right.
you don't necessarily see anything in it.
Right. No, I think that's a great point for many entrepreneurs, to make sure that you've got your why very clear. So whenever you do have those tough days when you're just like, how the heck with this, I want to quit, you have a very strong reason of why you're doing that will help get you over the hump and get you out of bed and keep you from shutting everything down and doing something a little easier.
Also, what you said about habits was a key factor. When I started implementing mini habits in my own life, that was actually a key turning point too.
Okay.
Just to be able to be consistent and not only write when I'm motivated to write, as I used to do, was actually huge.
Okay.
That's how I wrote the book.
Okay.
A mini habit of 50 words a day is why the book exists.
So you demonstrated the value in the habits and what your concepts and what you were talking about by doing it to produce the book. That's
yeah. Yeah.
So it's clear that it works because you did it for yourself.
Yeah.
All right, so knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self at the point in which you were starting out with your blog and writing the book? Because you learn so much as you go along in the process. What would you warn yourself against?
The first thing I would teach myself is going to sound promotional. I would teach myself mini habits, just because, one, they've worked for me, and two, they've launched a very successful product.
Right.
As far as what I would warn myself against, I would advise myself not to focus too much on the content and not enough on marketing the content.
Right.
And that, for bloggers, I think that's a really key point.
Right.
Is they just keep writing posts that nobody is reading, instead of saying, hey, this is a great post, let me share this with everyone. And,
Right.
and there are creative ways to do that, even if you don't have like a big social media following. It's something I'm still working on, of course, but people like Derek Halpern of Social Triggers,
Mm-hmm.
he had many thousands of subscribers when his blog only had like 3 posts on it.
Oh, wow.
So it was a great example of what I'm talking about.
Right, right.
Writing less, marketing more, especially in the beginning.
Right, especially when you know and you're really sure that what you are offering is valuable and can help people. It helps you get over any anxiety about, oh my gosh, should I, can I send this to this person and ask them to share it? But yeah, it helps you go that when you know that you really do have information that will help people.
Yeah, definitely.
So what tell us a little bit about a failure that you encountered and what you learned from it.
Okay. The most powerful failure that I've encountered in my current blog business was, a friend told me about a blog called mindbodygreen.com. It's a really popular blog. They've got about, 3 million Facebook fans by now.
Right.
So I wanted to write a guest post for them to reach their readership. And so I emailed them a guest post, the full guest post, and I didn't hear back from them. So I emailed them a second post, and I didn't hear back from them. And that's really the worst when you don't hear back,
Right.
because a no at least lets you know that, okay, they didn't want it, so I can try again. But if you don't hear back, you're like, did they even get the email?
Right.
What, am I wasting my time? But anyway, I sent them a third guest post, and I didn't hear back.
Persistence.
But for some reason, I tried again, and I sent them a fourth guest post, and they actually published it.
Oh, wow.
So that sequence of failure, those three in a row, and just to persevere through those and then see a result was it was just really big for me, because it's really important in whatever you do to have that perseverance, that grit, some may call it, to
Right.
just keep pushing even though you're getting a lot of negative feedback.
Right.
No feedback.
No feedback sometimes is telling you something.
Yes.
And as you were going through that first, second, third, fourth time sending it over to them, did you have to make little tweaks in your approach to the articles that you were sending them?
Yes. Actually, after the third one, I didn't hear a response. I asked my friend for advice who had published a post on their site.
Okay.
And he said he looked at their most popular articles and I guess got a good feel of
Okay.
what content was popular there. So I did the same. I looked at their really popular articles, and instead of writing what I wanted to write, I wrote about what their audience seemed
What's
to
there?
respond to.
Right.
Sure enough, that was the one that made it.
That's a good lesson. So many times, as business owners or as writers, we write about what we want to write, or we sell what we want to sell,
Yeah.
because we think it's exactly what they need to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times we'll go a lot farther whenever we actually give them what they want to buy or give them what they want to read. So yeah, it's a big shift, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah, certainly.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your proudest moment has been through this whole journey?
I mean, overall, it would be Mini Habits in general. What it's done, it's been as high as the number 11 book overall on the Kindle store.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I
And
really
you're
wanted.
self-published too, so that's even higher accolades.
Yeah, I really wanted the top 10, but 11 is still pretty good.
Absolutely, it is.
And also being published in, well, not yet, but soon to be published in a dozen more languages is just kind of mind-blowing to me for my first published book. It's a lot more than I hoped for.
Very cool. Very cool. No, that they have a lot to be proud of. Congratulations to you. Any
Thank you.
parting words of wisdom for entrepreneurs who are toiling away, trying to make their dream happen and trying to build up those proud moments that they can talk about one day soon?
Yeah, I would say copy the principles of other successful people, but don't copy them directly.
Mm-hmm.
Differentiate yourself is what I'm saying, but also learn from the principles of success. What makes some people succeed?
Okay.
And of course, there are plenty examples of successful people
Right.
out there. So, yeah.
All right. Don't become
Unique.
a clone.
Yeah.
And what can we expect to see from you in the future?
In 1 month, book number 2 is coming out.
Can you share with us a little bit about what it is?
Sure. It's called How to Be an Imperfectionist, and it's a book that is going to help perfectionists overcome perfectionism.
Sign me up!
Yeah, that's a lot of people, when I tell them the title, like, oh, I need to read that. So.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to put a link to this in the show notes because it'll probably be live. Your book will probably be launched by the time this show gets published. So Yeah, I'll
Awesome.
definitely be looking forward to comb through the pages of that one as well.
Awesome.
All right, so before we go, I do have a bonus question for you. This one's a little fun, especially since you're a writer. So I'm sure as a writer, you really do appreciate the writing that goes into movies. Sometimes there's just one line from a movie that sticks in your head, and you might be walking around and you just have to say it out loud or you act it out. So could you deliver for us one line from a movie that you just love?
All right. Well, I've got two. I've got one that I find really funny, and another more serious one.
Okay.
The funny one is, I don't know, maybe it's just my sense of humor, but in Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey's character walks out of a 7-Eleven, and there are a couple of guys just sipping on their drinks, and he turns to them and he's like, "Big gulps, huh? Oh, see you later." And he just leaves. Just, I don't know. I guess it's subtle.
I remember that one.
Yeah, isn't it great?
It is. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason why we like something, we just do.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the second one?
So the second one is, I think, a really deep and cool quote from Fight Club, which people quote all the time. And that's "Losing all hope was freedom." And I had a really difficult time in my life that I can see how that quote played a role. It was actually a couple years ago. And it seemed like when I kind of gave up hope, I was able to almost start over. My back was against the wall, and I don't know, there's something powerful about it. I actually wrote a post in my list about it, but uh, I think there's a lot of deep meaning in that.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen. This has been wonderful. We've learned lots from you. And I look forward to reading your new book when it comes out. I think it's going to be wonderful. You're doing lots of wonderful things.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It was fun.
I hope you enjoyed the discussion with Stephen as much as I did. Now, with all those great pearls of wisdom he had to share, there was one thing in particular that stood out to me. And that brings us to today's I Am the One challenge. As I say often, the information that you get from experts in their field is fabulous. But that information won't do you one bit of good if you don't apply the lessons. So, based upon Stephen's insights, here's today's challenge question for you. What's one important thing that you need to be consistent about doing to grow your business? Once you've decided on that thing, choose one small miniature action you can take each day to help you establish the habit you need to improve your consistency. Think about it and then head on over to iamtheone.fm and let me know your answer. Leave it in the comments on the show notes page or even tweet me at Sonia E. Thompson. I'll be on the lookout for you. Until next time, keep working on building your dream business so you can make life better. Somebody's waiting on you. Thanks for watching.